Good afternoon, everyone. Dr. Richard Ferguson here, the Black Physicians of Utah, and I wanted to provide a brief health update today regarding the triple threat that is affecting pediatric hospitalizations throughout our nation. That triple threat is from COVID, RSV, and influenza. That is leading to increased ED admission visits for children, particularly under the age of 4. I'm going to take a few moments to go over what you can do to protect your child, your family, and what we can do to increase the capacity and bandwidth of our hospitals. So you may ask, what is causing so many kids to be admitted for respiratory symptoms this season? Well, the influenza A and B strains are active earlier due to the climate becoming cooler and drier, leading to people to spend more time indoors. Secondly, the respiratory syncytial virus, or RSV, which typically afflicts children 2 to 4 years of age. But due to increased isolation from the pandemic years, many children have not been exposed to RSV from an earlier age, thus they have not built up immunity. COVID is a factor, but not as much as flu in terms of hospital admissions. 75% of the admissions over the past 2 weeks are not secondary to COVID infections. However, many of these children are going to be placed at risk of acquiring COVID due to flu and RSV, leading them to spend time in emergency room waiting areas and urgent care waiting areas. What are symptoms of RSV and when should you bring in your child? Children infected with RSV usually show symptoms within 4 to 6 days after getting infected. Symptoms of RSV are often a runny nose, decrease in appetite, coughing, sneezing, and fever. In infants, this can present as irritability, decreased activity, and breathing difficulties. Almost all children will have had RSV infection by their 2nd birthday and built up immunity. But we cannot say this is the case for children born in 2020 or 2019. RSV does not tend to have a large impact on children older than 4 years of age due to more mature nasal passages and not having occlusion of their upper airway as easily with mucus production. There is no vaccine for RSV, but you need to be able to recognize when your child is having retracted breathing, showing their ribs, when they're breathing rapidly at home. If there are increased abdominal respirations, you need to be able to recognize this and take your child to an emergency room or urgent care. Secondly, if your child is having mild symptoms, particularly fever, make sure you control the fever with Motrin and Tylenol every 4 to 6 hours. And then thirdly, it is important to keep your child hydrated. If you're not able to keep your child hydrated, they actually will have more and more difficulty breathing, and then that leads to them more likely going to the emergency room a lot sooner. What are symptoms of influenza, and when should you bring in your child? Symptoms of influenza are very similar to that of RSV: cough, sore throat, runny nose, muscle and body aches, but often it can be signature with a high fever. But particularly, what are flu symptoms to watch out for in a child? Once again, fast breathing, similar to with RSV, bluish lips or bluish face, retraction of the ribs, muscle pain, dehydration, that often means no urine for 8 hours, a dry mouth, or not producing any tears. And then also, if the fever is above 104. Please, if any of those signs or symptoms, bring your child to the emergency room. Lastly, are there any other viruses that you should be concerned about during the season? Well, there are others, and they often can be detected with a respiratory viral panel, particularly through PCR tests. Some of those are the human metapneumovirus, rhinovirus, parainfluenza, and adenovirus. The only way to protect yourself and your child during this particular worrisome season is to get vaccinated against COVID, which is indicated for children 6 months and older. Also, to get vaccinated for influenza, once again, indicated and safe for children 6 months and older. Avid hand washing, avoiding contact with sick individuals, and masking. Masking is the reason why flu numbers and RSV numbers, and also due to isolation during the pandemic, were low in 2020 and 2021. Well, we are all inside now, but while we're inside, let's be safe. Get vaccinated, wash your hands, wear a mask, and try to avoid sick people. Thank you, and this is once again Dr. Richard Ferguson of the Black Physicians of Utah.